Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, the second edition of AD&D. When we last left off, we were talking about NPCs, your supporting characters. Let's dive into it a little bit more. So beyond the personality and the traits and the skills you've developed for these NPCs is much more information. This is not the only things you need to bring an NPC to life. They're going to have a unique appearance. And this can mean anything. Think of the variations in amongst humans themselves, let alone the variations that are going to exist for fantasy races. The vast amount of differences in appearances means that we can't just come up with a simple chart you can roll on. We can provide some charts, which might help you with coming up with these, but the amount of details that can be chosen from, vast. As vast as there are a number of people across the Earth today, that's the amount of variations you can get, plus more when it comes to these people that you're going to develop. Now, this isn't to say that you're going to have every one of your NPCs have such a unique appearance they stand out. You have those folks that are more ordinary, that are kind of blend into the background, and then those that have appearances which scream, check me out, come and meet me, come and talk to me. A good place for a dungeon master to start out with is figure out this character's role in the world. Because guess what? Their general appearance is going to match that role. If they're a guard, they're going to be dressed in armor, probably be a little bigger, more muscular. If they're just an innkeep, well, then they might be, maybe a little pudgy because they just spend all day sitting there eating food that the person that's taking care of the inn is doing. Things like that you can come up with reasons from some basic appearance and details determined by just saying one thing. An occupation, a job, a role. And so coming up with a few of these detailed bits of information about this character can spurn on all kinds of other information about this NPC as you're developing it. You're basically inspiring yourself with a few words for creativity. You come up with a few things about it and then develop it more as it's needed. Now, important descriptors that you may want to use for these characters are, of course, their age, their height, their weight, their hair, the manner that they speak, any kind of facial characteristics that they may have, and much more information. These basic things that you put together will allow you to quickly create an appearance for someone, to develop it and make it make sense as a character. There are a number of descriptive words listed in the book which will help you to get an idea of what you need in order to develop the physical appearance part of this NPC. Now, all NPCs have unique personalities and are not necessarily obedient to the player characters, to the PCs, even if they are interacting with them over a long period of time, if they are something like a hireling or a henchman. There is a basic morale system. It's effectively similar to a loyalty system. It's how much that they feel connected to these PCs and are willing to follow them. Each of these will have a base morale. On the case of hirelings and henchmen, hirelings will have a 10, henchmen will have a 12. These base numbers are then modified by situational modifiers to give a total morale that they have. This morale has a number of effects. First off, should combat occur, they will make a morale check. If they succeed it, they are willing to join combat. If not, they're going to flee and run. This is telling you how much these NPCs that are with your players are willing to fight with them. This also represents temptation. This temptation is an important part of it, because this means bribes and revenge, the possibilities of those existing in these NPCs' mind because of the actions the player have taken, and if they're going to act on it. These are going to be called for when the dungeon master feels that they are appropriate, and they are more not necessarily optional in using them, optional when they're going to be used. It, again, is totally dungeon master when they're going to have these NPCs roll this. These are all subtle things. The temptation is based upon subtlety. You're not going to know that this NPC has basically failed this check unless they leave you right away feeling like, oh, I'm betrayed, I'm gone. If they don't do that, then of course they're probably going to come up with more subtle plans of when to either betray the players as a whole or a certain PC if there's one in particular that they really would hate, and bring apart the point in time causing problems. With subtlety, they're going to wait for their opportunity to strike. Now, building an NPC, its complete personality, appearance, history, all the details of its skills and abilities, putting everything together can be difficult, daunting, time-consuming. You're not going to want to always do that for every NPC. There are times, especially during an adventure, where you may need an NPC right then and there, on the fly. You can't put all this information together. That's where we're going to have to look at a couple of things you can do. First off, create what you need for an NPC. If you know you're going to have a particular NPC, but you only know you need X, Y details, only put together X and Y details. Don't stat the rest of the things out. You don't need that information. You're only going to create for an NPC what you feel is appropriate. If you're going to need to put something together on the fly, on the other hand, that one, both of these are basically, not creating too much for NPCs. Come up with some basic templates. Basically NPC templates that you can put this stuff, put it right here in front of you, and then throw in a couple more details depending on the NPC that you're using, and there you go. Generic kind of bartender. I throw a few more details on him. Guess what? I've got a bartender ready for your characters to meet that's now unique, that I've thrown together a little bit more onto just to make it unique. But I had that basis ready to go, ready for me to pull out and to use for you to encounter. Remember to keep the details on these short, because if it's an NPC that will end up being important, then it should represent something important. It should seem noticeable, stand out. But if it's an unimportant kind of nobody, then keep the details short, because the characters are going to flock to those that seem interesting. If you make this unimportant one that's just there for space filler almost, for making sure you have someone there for an interaction that's quick and gone, well, it might end up being a distraction to the game itself. So you're going to want to make sure to balance out the interest level of these NPCs as you're pulling them out. Also, don't add too much to these. You have a basis, keep it simple, especially in these templates. That way you can add the interest in later on. This means the difference between major NPCs and minor ones. That's a really good way of looking at it. Now, another important thing you can do is use your PC's interactions with the NPC. Take what you basically have. And worrying about the description, maybe the way they act, the personality, and the history, this information you can develop as your PCs interact with the NPC, as they ask questions, learn things, as the person would comment. Basically, the essence of the character will come out in the way that you act. In this case, it's important that you write notes down. You make notes about this character that once you revisit them, you now know more about their personality and their history that you just developed on the fly when interacting with your players. And that way, when they return to this NPC, they will act and have the same history, and will have a level of consistency to it, which is very important in games. Players like to be immersed in the world. If you're not, then it doesn't feel like a real world because of the lack of inconsistency. And there is one of the most important things for any NPC. Know which ones your players are meeting. Make notes on all of them about how the meeting went. And that way, if there's new and more important information on how you're developing from even when you basically created them, you can put them together at this point in time. It allows you to develop the character more over the course of the adventure using your players' interactions to a degree and what they make as decisions. Your notes are going to be very important because just like with your characters, how they're going to develop, NPCs will evolve to a degree because of the interaction with the players. And all that information you put together, might change just a little bit because of the interaction, the way they did it. Someone that you meant to be very friendly might become a hostile kind of jerk to the players because of the way they treated him. Very easily, very simply. But that's it for today. I finished talking about your supporting characters, your NPCs. I talked about the fact that appearance will make a great difference to your characters because it makes them unique in the world. I, of course, talked about putting together this appearance. Then I moved into morale. Basically, the loyalty of your and the ability of your NPCs that are working with your PCs to stick with them. How much they're willing to fight with them, how much they're willing to be loyal to them. It counts as both of them. And you will use these checks to not only determine if they're going to stick around and fight in battle, that they're not going to get afraid, but also if they're going to remain loyal against bribes or revenge or other problems that could drive them to betray your players. It's a very important statistic that you as a dungeon master are going to keep track of. You're going to know it for all of these hirelings and all of these henchmen, so if something goes wrong and it's your player's fault, well, they might be leaving. Then I finally ended up by talking about easily putting together NPCs. Little tricks that you can use to basically make an NPC on the fly. To make it quick and efficiently, to not have to worry about any problems, and it's boom, done. I made an NPC. And it will evolve over the course of the adventure. In the next episode, we are going to dive into vision, your ability to see, and light, what you're going to be using to see, and both the vision of your players and those that might see them. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please just leave it in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows support for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel and the Empire. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.